10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast, episode 265. Hey everybody, welcome back to episode 265 of the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Podcast. Thanks so much for joining us. Excited to be here with the last in our series on developing rhythmic flexibility. Hope you've all enjoyed this series. I've really enjoyed making some of this stuff and actually getting back into practicing some of this material. So it's been fun for me, and hopefully it's been fun for you as well. So before we get into the show, as usual, I've got some shout outs for new Patreon members. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, this is a listener-supported podcast. We do not have advertisements on the show, and all of our support and our ability to keep putting out this show comes from listeners just like you. So if you want to support the show, you could do so with a small monthly donation, and you do get a PDF and audio examples from every single episode. You can find out how to sign up by going to our website, 10minutejazzlesson.com, clicking on one of the Patreon banners, and getting yourself signed up today for instant access to all those benefits. So quick shout out to the new people who have signed up. Thank you to our new $5 patrons. Thank you to Disa, Steen, and Kinchan, and I hope I am pronouncing those right. My apologies if I butchered anybody's name, but thank you for joining up to the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Patreon family. And of course, thank you to our over 300 members over there for continuing to support us for the past couple of years. Really appreciate it. Again, 10minutejazzlesson.com, click on one of the Patreon banners, instant access to all of that stuff. Okay, so let's jump into part 4 of rhythmic flexibility. We've gone over a whole bunch of different concepts when it comes to being as diverse as you can and being as comfortable switching between different rhythmic values over several different time signatures. And what I wanted to do today was just finish up the series with a couple of other rhythms that I think everybody should be able to play and be able to handle. So we're going to look at one rhythm in 4/4 and one in 3/4, and we're going to talk about being able to play 3/4 and 4/3. I think this is a great way to finish up the series and just give you one more thing to think about and practice with the metronome so that you could be as flexible as possible. All right, so let's jump into example 1. So what we're going to look at is a half note triplet over measures of 4/4 time. So in effect, what this is going to do is it's going to have us playing 3/4. Now, one of the things about triplets is that the longer the value of the triplet, so meaning that a half note triplet in 4/4 is the largest value of triplet we can play in one measure, right? Like we can play 4 eighth note triplets in a measure, we could play 2 quarter note triplets in a measure, and we could play 1 half note triplet in a measure of 4/4. The longer they get, the more difficult they are to play. And the reason is that triplet feel is spread out over a longer period of time. It becomes more and more difficult to play that triplet perfectly divided amongst the entire measure. It's kind of like if you are working with the metronome. If you have the metronome clicking on all 4 beats, in fact, we've talked about this on the show before. If you have the metronome clicking on all 4 beats, that gives you the most useful and easiest reference, right? So the metronome is kind of holding your hand. It's saying, here's every single beat in the measure. So it's not that hard to play with the metronome clicking on every beat. What if you were to take away beats 1 and 3 with the metronome and have the metronome clicking on 2 and 4. Now, all of a sudden, if you think about it in mathematical terms, it becomes twice as hard because I'm removing half of your reference points. The metronome is not holding your hand as much. It's only holding your hand half as much. Now, if I turn the metronome on so that there was only clicking on beat 1, then that would in effect be twice as hard as what we just came from. Now the metronome is only giving you one beat. You're responsible for keeping track of the other three beats with your own sense of time, and then the metronome is going to click again, right? So it's the same kind of thing with triplets. If you are playing eighth note triplets, you get to kind of reset that subdivision every beat. If you're playing quarter note triplets, you only get to reset that subdivision once every two beats, which leaves you more room for error. And once you're doing half note triplets, now you can only reset that triplet once a measure, which leaves you a lot of room for error. So this is probably going to be the hardest triplet that you're studying out of the ones that we've talked about on this show. So just be ready for that. And as we play a half note triplet, it is literally going to superimpose 3/4. So we're going to have 4 beats going, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and we're going to be thinking triplets. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So we're connotating 3 beats in a measure, even though there are actually 4. So what I've done is I've basically just written this little exercise for you that's just taking a concert G major scale, and I just wrote a little melody that I think sounded good, and you're going to play constant half note triplets over the entire exercise. And what I want you to work on is trying to make them as even as possible, spreading those 3 notes evenly across the measure so that it sounds like you're playing in 3, even though the metronome is going to be clicking in 4. So let's hear what that sounds like. So you can hear it's just a little ditty that I wrote, and you could either play the one that I wrote, or you can simply just pick a major scale and just kind of improvise, but keep that 3/4 feeling, right? Trying to make it as even as possible. If you've never done this before, it might be kind of difficult, but like anything that we talk about on this show, make sure you take your time, give yourself a leeway, and just keep at it. Just keep at it, and it will get better and better and better, and that metronome is going to be your best friend. You pretty much have to have a metronome turned on, or you can use Drum Genius, or you can use iReel, or whatever you want to do. Just make sure that there's something behind you that's keeping a constant tempo and is keeping you honest, right? So that you're not tricking yourself into believing that you're doing it right. You need that frame of reference to keep you on the ball. All right, so the second exercise that we're going to do is the exact opposite of this. We just did 3/4. Now we're going to do 4/3. So I'm sure that you've seen this before in a tune or a composition or something that you've been playing. You'll see in 3/4, if you look at example number 2 on the PDF this week, you'll see a bracket with a 4 over it, and you'll see 4 quarter notes in a measure of 3. So like I said, this is the exact opposite. Now, instead of spreading things out, we're actually compressing things, right? So we're actually trying to fit one more beat in a measure than we did last time, which was taking quarter notes and using one less beat in a measure. So with the half note triplet, we're basically taking a quarter note and we're removing it from the measure to get 3/4. Now what we're doing is we're taking a quarter note and we're adding to the measure so that there's going to be one extra beat in the measure. So now we're thinking 3 beats in a measure, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to stick an extra beat in there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1. This one is a little bit harder, in my opinion, because this does actually pretty quickly start to sound like you are playing in a different time signature from what the rhythm section is or what the metronome is doing. So again, if you've never done this before, it's going to be really hard. In fact, you can even hear in my recording, I like to give you guys the recordings warts and all. just to show you that it's not easy for anybody, right? So if you're having trouble with it, just know that we all are. You can hear that my 4/3 is a little bit uneven at times, and this is something that I need to continue working on. So again, I just picked the key of concert G and I wrote a little ditty using the major scale. Don't read into my note choice. I literally just tried to write something that I thought sounded decent. So here's example number 2, which is 4/3. All right, so there's your 2 exercises for this week. And I think if you take this 4-episode series and you just work on this for the next period of time, you're really going to start to notice that you are going to feel a lot more freedom when it comes to playing rhythmically. Now, of course, there are a million other ways to work on this, but if you haven't really worked on these concepts before, just take the stuff that I've given you in the past 4 episodes, start there, and then you can come up with more things or you can ask your teacher about it or whatever. But I do think this is really going to help. It's really helped me to get back in this stuff. And the only way to see the benefits is to actually practice it. So I hope that you grab those PDFs and do just that. I hope you enjoyed this series. Let me know if you have any questions. Great place to ask is the 10-Minute Jazz Lesson Community Facebook page. And of course, you can always get in touch with me, 10minutejazzlesson@gmail.com. Really like hearing from all of you out there, so don't hesitate to reach out. We'll be back next week with our Lick of the Month episode, and then after that, we'll do our Tune of the Month. All right, hope you're all doing well out there, staying safe and healthy, and we will talk to you soon. Have a good weekend, everybody. Bye.